This is always true unless you live in a place where there is practically no winter. Every February is unbearable, but this February seemed worse than all the others. I thought about this while sitting on the balcony of my apartment, drinking coffee and smoking a cigarette. It's a bad habit, I know, and I quit a long time ago when money was really tight. But now there is enough money, and the truth is that I don't care anymore. I don't smoke around kids, though. I don't want them to pick up my bad habits, and I don't want to expose them to secondhand smoke. But they are with their grandparents on the weekend, so I have some free time to sit and think. The worst February in all of human history began with 2 weeks where we literally didn't see the sun. Gray skies, temperatures in the mid-20s, and an occasional couple of inches of snow. Everyone looked forward to Valentine's Day as if it were their hope of salvation. That year it fell on a Thursday, and so many people took the next day off that editorials suggested simply shutting down the entire city on February 15th. My wife Linda and I had big plans for Valentine's Day, just like everyone else. Like everyone else, we woke up to 2 inches of new snow, and it continued to fall heavily. By mid-afternoon, we were both sent home from work while we could still get somewhere. The entire city was closing down. By the time we had to get dressed for our night in the town, all the roads were closed to unnecessary traffic, so we changed into cozy sweatshirts. The great Valentine's Day dinner movie dance date that was supposed to make up for the previous 2 weeks of ongoing brutality turned out to be frozen pizza and Frozen with the kids. The only dances we had that night were when we sent Emma and Timmy, who were 6 and 4 years old respectively, to sleep on the second floor with the protests of, "You know there's no school tomorrow." After the kids were asleep, I passed Linda a glass of wine, sighing as I did so. "Sorry, honey," I said. "This is not how it was supposed to turn out." "It's okay, Jim. It's not your fault, and it was still fun waiting for what you had planned for us. Plus, if nothing else, I got a new party dress out of it," she replied. "Which I haven't seen yet," I told her. "You know the rule. You won't see it until you take me out in it," she said, raising her eyebrows. I looked at her, trying to imagine what she had bought and how she would look in it. Everything she wears not only fits her well, it reflects who she is. She started making her own clothes in middle school and continues to do so from time to time. She also makes many of Emma's play outfits. Anyone who had the good fortune to see her in the outfit would think that she was the most attractive woman in the room, but it would be difficult to understand why, because there would be sexier women there. I looked at the diamond ring I had placed on her finger almost 10 years ago as it sparkled in the firelight. "Thank you for saying yes, Linda. I love you." I raised my glass. "For us." "I love you too." "For us," she replied with a smile. We sat in silence, comfortably. "Linda, I'm sorry I've been a bear the last few days," I said. "It's nothing you or the kids did, and you deserve better from me. It's just this damn February, and it's—" "I know, Jim," she said softly. "I'm sorry, too. I was just as bad. I think the sleeping bears have the right idea. We really should sleep until spring. We were all on edge, even the kids. The people at my job are much worse than you, by the way. What about yours? Work?" "The same." "Well, look at it this way, Jim. We have each other, we have children, we have our home. We know where the next meal is coming from." "Yeah, from Wendy's," I said with a laugh, remembering our first date so long ago. It was our inside joke. I met her in college. My parents had to cut off my funding to pay my dad's medical bills, and I refused to take out a loan, so after paying for school and books, I literally had no money. Linda was doing a little better and offered to treat me or split the bill, but I didn't want that, so I saved up to take her to a nice place. She told me it was stupid and said the goal was to spend time together and get to know each other, and that could be done just as easily at Wendy's. So we went there, and the rest is history. We've moved up in class since then, but sometimes we still go to Wendy's for old time's sake. "Seriously, though," I said, "how do people cope in times like these if they don't have love?" "Sometimes they fail." Linda winced. "But we can handle it, and we will," I said. I put down my glass and took both her hands in mine. Happy Valentine's Day, my beloved wife. Happy Valentine's Day, my beloved husband. We looked into each other's eyes for a moment and then decided it would be best to take it to the bedroom. The result was the 3-day weekend the editors were talking about, thanks to 2 feet of snow instead of the predicted 8 inches. Everything was closed, but luckily almost no one lost power, and enough people had snowmobiles that those who really needed to get somewhere were able to do so. Our children, of course, were delighted. Mom and Dad were home all day. There was snow to play in and pizza to eat and movies to watch, not to mention there was no school. What more could you ask for? Linda and I were also happy with this situation. There was no pressure to be somewhere or do anything, and we could enjoy our family with all our hearts. Food wasn't an issue. Linda and I both grew up here, so we always made sure to stock up on enough food in advance with some extra in case anyone wanted to share. Emma and Timmy were so tired that they didn't even mind sleeping and slept like the dead. This, of course, allowed Linda and I to satisfy our hearts in ways that would normally have required sending the children away from home. There were just a couple of things that I thought weren't quite right. We had hundreds of movies at home, but the kids only wanted to watch one. Cold Heart, again and again. Okay, it's a cute little story and has good songs, but come on. And Linda still wouldn't show me the dress and wouldn't even let me see it. Taking me out in it means taking me out, not in, she said, smiling flirtatiously. What if I promise to take it off you? Is that close enough? I asked. Nice try, but no, she said, not giving an inch. The real world returned early Sunday evening as snowplows moved through our neighborhood. School and work resumed on Monday, and we all sighed in preparation. Just before bed, Emma and Timmy walked into the living room, already washed and in their night clothes. Of course, the older sister acted as a representative. Mom, Dad, this weekend was the best. Thank you for playing with us, watching our movie with us, and being with us all 3 days in a row. We love you. After that, Dad's daughter climbed onto my lap, and Mom's son climbed onto Linda. After giving us the sweetest baby hugs in the world, they switched places and did it again. I looked at Linda, and her eyes were as wet as mine. We love you too, I said with difficulty. We are so glad that you are our children. That night, Linda and I made love so sweetly that it seemed as if we had become one. The next morning, we couldn't wipe the smiles off our faces, and neither could the kids. But the unbearable February is back, and the 3-day weekend is just another memory. Linda and I had just relaxed into each other on the living room couch after finally putting Emma and Timmy to bed when her phone rang. I muttered something, but I don't remember what exactly. This is Dee, I need to take this, she said. We had a loose group of 5 couples that we would meet or go out with from time to time. We all met while already married, so there were no awkward when you were free moments. We all had the same views on fidelity. It was just done. It wasn't even discussed. At least that's what I thought at the time. So when we went out, we could dance with each other's spouses if we wanted to change and know we were safe. We were closest to Dee and her husband Dave. She and Linda were almost best friends forever. Linda made a this-will-be-short gesture when she answered the phone. I could see Linda getting more and more agitated as she talked to Dee. She glowed as she ended the call and jumped into my lap. So what was that about? I asked. My face reflected her smile. Well, my dear husband, she said with a grin, I know you're thinking this terrible February has gone on long enough. You're right, I said, reaching for my glass of wine. Linda grabbed my wrist to stop me and placed my hand firmly on her thin waist. We were lamenting that not only was this February the worst in human history, but that we would have to endure it one day longer, she continued. Something about it didn't match the smile on her face, and I told her so. That's because Dee had a great idea, she said. This extra day of horror falls on Friday. What if we all got together, found babysitters for the kids, had a nice dinner, then danced at a nice club, and then stayed the night in a hotel? That way we can have a little fun and not worry about how to get home, and let's end this terrible month properly. I liked the idea, but I had a couple of questions. What about the road from the club to the hotel? Do we have to drive? I asked. Sorry if you will, but I'm almost always the guy who asks what could go wrong with the plan. That's the best part, Jim, she said, sounding excited. Do you remember Madison Uptown? We ate there, remember? There's a club down the block where Dave's coworkers go. There's live music there on Friday, and admission is free if you dine at Madison. Oh, and Phil and Jane have already asked Mrs. Porter leaves their kids overnight, and she doesn't mind taking ours too. I need to think about it, I said, pretending to think about it. I didn't really need to, but I knew that if I acted like there was a problem, she would find a way to convince me. Instead, she grabbed a pillow from the sofa and hit me over the head with it. Okay, I thought, let's do it. But on one condition, I told her. Which one? Linda looked at me suspiciously. I took her sweet face between my hands and looked into her blue eyes. You're going to wear the dress you bought for Valentine's Day, which I still haven't seen, I said. As you wish, my lord, she said with a smile. Your wish is my law. It was blue. The dress, that is. Don't ask me what blue it was because I won't be able to explain. All I can say is that it was the blue color that made her blue eyes glow in the dark. It had long sleeves and a high collar, and the skirt fell below the knees, but it was still a far cry from a granny-style dress. The bottom of the skirt was flared, and it fluttered slightly as she walked, drawing attention. When she danced, the skirt flirted on its own. The smooth fabric made you want to run your hands over it as it both hid and accentuated the feminine curves underneath. Linda smiled as she slowly walked down the stairs where I waited for her, startled and open-mouthed. Dear Jim, she said softly. She closed my mouth with a gentle finger under my chin. I swallowed, but still couldn't speak. You don't understand. You don't know how amazing you look. The words left me. I took her thin hands in both mine, leaned over and kissed them. I looked up and saw her eyes sparkling and shaking slightly in a smile. I nodded. She understood. All 10 of us met in a restaurant. It was packed on a Friday night, but we reserved a table large enough for all 10 of us to dine together. We laughed, chatted, and enjoyed great food, happy to be in each other's company, and that February was finally ending. Linda was the most attractive woman in the room, and I must have told her so about 6 times. I touched her arm or shoulder or arm as many times as I could find a reasonable excuse. She reciprocated and smiled in my eyes. It was a night worth remembering. We checked into our rooms before heading to the club. Neither Linda nor I can handle alcohol very well, so I usually took on driving duties. I was glad that I didn't have to do that tonight. It's not that I don't like it. The safety of my friends was important to me, but I was looking forward to being alone with Linda. We don't really need to spend much time at the club, do we? She whispered as we walked. I knew how much Linda enjoyed dancing with our friends, so she could just as easily have said, I better not wait too long until we're alone, preferably naked. I smiled back at her. Your choice, honey, I said. She hit me lightly on the shoulder, then wrapped her arms around it and pressed herself against it. We reserved a table for 10 people at the club, and luckily we did. It seemed like a lot of other people were busy forgetting February too, but they weren't too busy to miss the 5 women in our group. You attract a lot of attention, darling, I whispered. You're clearly the most attractive woman in the room, as usual. Oh, you. She looked at me, gently pressing her soft breast against my hand. You know that flattery will bring you success. Neither Linda nor I were great dancers, but we didn't disgrace ourselves either. It's just not that important to us. We're here to enjoy each other, not to entertain everyone else. So I danced with the love of my life, with breaks for hot wings and a drink. I went for a new batch of wings. When I returned, Dave asked Linda to dance. I heard her answer. I'd love to do it another time too, Dave, but I want to make this evening special for Jim and me. I'm only dancing with him tonight, she said. Was I proud? Happy? You can be sure. I handed out the wings and whispered in Linda's ear. So it's time to leave? I asked. right after you brought out a fresh plate of wings. What do you think? We'll both need energy for what I have planned, she said, raising an eyebrow. She gave me that look again and held my hand under the table. After a few minutes, the group took a break. In the relative silence, we heard loud laughter from another table and turned around. Hey, isn't this Mark Lavalier? Phil asked, craning his neck to look past me. Yes, it's him, exclaimed Dee with delight. Mark Lavalier was the star tight end for our professional football team, the Sharks. Unlike many other players on the team, he lived here year-round. He was known as a genuinely nice guy and was as well known for his social activities as he was for his exploits on the field. Mark became the main topic of conversation at our table as the guys discussed his football exploits and the women praised his good deeds and pleasant nature. The fact that he's handsome doesn't hurt either, Dee added. Linda and I both knew who he was, but at that moment we weren't very interested in anything other than each other. We let the conversation pass us by, holding hands under the table. Hey, you two, get yourself a room, Dee said. Linda and I looked at each other. We didn't even kiss. Well, at least not with a real kiss. The fact that I fed her wings didn't count. Besides, we already had a room. We were spared further embarrassment when the band started playing again. Shall we dance here or upstairs? I whispered to Linda. Before she could respond, Jane intervened. Look, he's coming here, she exclaimed. And sure enough, Lavalier left his table and walked towards ours. I was amused by the reaction of the women at our table. 4 of them began to preen and make eyes, as if to say, pick me, pick me. If you think a woman can't make eyes while sitting at a table, think again. Linda looked down and squeezed my hand tighter. Hi, I'm Mark. Do you want to dance? He asked, standing behind Linda's left shoulder, extending his hand towards her. I felt her flinch as she let go of my hand like a hot potato. I watched, amazed, as she turned her back to me without a word, took Mark's right hand, and rose gracefully from her chair without even looking at me a second time. I noticed how her hand practically disappeared into his large paw. I also noticed the look of delight on her face. At that moment, I ceased to exist in her mind. Hey man, now my feelings are hurt. I thought she was only dancing with you tonight, Dave said, egging me on. Yeah, I thought so too, I muttered. Relax, Jim. It's just a dance, Jane said, trying to calm me down. I tried to believe her, but I couldn't shake the feeling of foreboding. The band played a couple of fast songs, and our entire table watched them dance, just like everyone else in the room. Mark was good, much better than me, and Linda was clearly enjoying herself. Her partner and her dress together showed her off perfectly. Don't they look great together? Come on, Jim, join them, Dee suggested, clearly trying to distract me. Thanks, but no, I replied sharply. The next song was slow. I watched Linda melt into his arms, fitting in perfectly as if she belonged there. He was good at this too. Lots of practice, I guess, I thought to myself. Mark whispered something to Linda. She smiled sweetly in response. He did nothing that I could legitimately object to. He didn't dance closer to her than I danced with Dee or Jane. His hands didn't go where they shouldn't. Another slow song, this time a ballad. I saw the orchestra conductor watching my wife and her new partner. Mark smiled as he held her in his arms. He's clearly happy with what's going on. I had seen enough and was determined to put an end to it. I stood up from my chair and felt Jane's hand on my arm. Wait, Jim. Let her enjoy it. Don't spoil it for her, she said. I pulled my hand away and then looked at Linda's face. She clearly wanted to be exactly where she was and nowhere else. She didn't want any interference from me. In fact, I was nowhere in her thoughts, and it was obvious. I collapsed back into my seat, heartbroken. Finally, the song ended. Mark nodded to the conductor, who began a faster song. He and Linda left the dance floor, smiling at each other, but not holding hands, not even touching each other. Linda gave him one last brilliant smile as she turned to our table and Mark headed to his. The difference between a woman's best smile and her second best smile is not that great. If you don't know the woman well, you probably won't notice it at all. As Linda approached our table and our eyes met, her best smile changed to her second best. At that moment, I realized we had a problem. "I always tell you that you are the most attractive woman here," I whispered in her ear as she sat down. I took her hand and held it in both of mine. "Time to take the next dance back to our room." For a moment, the tiniest moment, I could have sworn Linda was afraid. Her eyes widened, and I felt her hand shake. She quickly came to her senses and looked away from me across the table. "Sorry, guys, I just need to go to the bathroom now." "Linda, come with me," Dee asked. Her voice could be heard far beyond our table. I was too preoccupied to wonder why she had to announce this to the entire room. Linda looked at me apologetically. "Sorry, Jim. I need to freshen up too," she said with a hint of sadness in her voice. She got up and left without answering my question. Of course, the conversation immediately turned to why not a single woman going out with a group could go to the toilet herself. I was just beginning to wonder why my friends were trying so hard to keep the conversation going when Dee came back. She was alone. "Where is Linda? Is she okay?" I asked, almost shouting. "Relax, Jim," Dee said, smiling. "Linda's okay, she just needed to do something. You don't have to worry about that. She's a grown woman, you know." What this was supposed to mean, I wondered. True, I was worried about Linda, but she was just as worried about me. I endured the taunts for about 5 minutes, and when Linda still didn't come back, I had enough. I stood up and headed to the bar, taking the empty plate with me as an excuse, and walked over to one of the barmaids. "Sorry, but my wife went to the bathroom about 15 minutes ago and hasn't come back," I said. "She never stays that long. Could you check if she's okay, or send someone to make sure she's okay? Her name is Linda." "Here, let me show you a picture of her," I said. I put the plate down and took out my phone with Linda's photo. The barmaid began to look more sympathetic when suddenly a voice spoke from my elbow. "She's fine. You don't need to check on her," Dee said almost apologetically. She turned to the barmaid. "It's okay. I'll take care of it," she said, placing $5 on the counter. I wondered why the barmaid looked at me with sympathy when she took the bill. "What, why? But she went there with you? Because you asked her to?" I was completely confused. "Jim, she's not in the restroom. She left the club," Dee said. I felt as if I had been hit in the stomach. "Left? Without me? Why? What happened? Why didn't she tell me? Where did she go? Is she okay?" I still didn't understand anything. "Let's go to the back of the bar. It's quieter there," Dee suggested. I followed her. It was quieter in the dark corner of the bar. She looked into my eyes. "Jim, Linda loves you. She loves you and the children more than anything in the world, and always will, and you know it. But she will spend this night with Mark," she said. I stood there with my mouth open, looking stupid as my world fell apart. Images flashed madly through my mind, or what was left of it. Linda is at the top of the stairs in her beautiful blue dress. Linda at dinner. Linda at the club. Linda feeding me wings. Linda is in this idiot's arms. This idiot with Linda. My Linda, mother of our children, love of my life. My anger increased. So on what was supposed to be our special night, she went to see some idiot jock, I muttered through gritted teeth, looking at Dee. "Jim, she hasn't left you. She'll come back to you tomorrow, and you'll have many more special nights together," she said. She didn't even think it was necessary to tell me to my face that she was leaving. She just slithered out the back door like a snake, I said. "And you helped her." "Jim, listen to me. She didn't leave," Dee began. "Well, if she hasn't left, then where is she? She's definitely not with me right now, is she?" I spoke louder and louder, and I didn't care who heard. "Please calm down. There are eyes on you. Look, I know this is painful for you, but it's just for one night. Linda knows, we all know that you are the only man for her and always will be. You're a good guy," Dee said condescendingly. "Yeah, and we all know how the good guys end up, don't we?" I said through clenched teeth. "Jim, it's not like that. You're making too big a deal out of it. It's just for one night. Then she'll come back to you and everything will be the same," she said. I snorted in response. If she truly believed this crap, nothing would change her mind. You don't understand. There's no tomorrow. So tell me, girlfriend, what role are you playing here? You didn't really have to go to the bathroom, did you? My wife gave you the signal, right? She told you to hold me up and distract me long enough for her and the idiot to escape. Dee looked down, embarrassed as she nodded. Yes, she asked me to do it because she didn't want you to embarrass yourself while Mark is here. She also asked me to make sure you remember that she loves you and that she will come back to you, she said. Yes, I will remember how she loved me tonight, for a long time, I thought. I felt my anger growing and my face turning red. More likely, she didn't want me to embarrass her by leaving with her husband to spend the night with the idiot jock, I said. Has it ever occurred to you, friend, to remind her that she has a husband and a marriage, and she could lose them because of this? Dee looked into my eyes. No, it didn't come, she said, because I know she won't lose you over this. You're too good a person to let that happen. I told her how lucky she was. She was lucky because the man every woman in the room wanted chose her. But she's even luckier because she has a husband who loves her enough to get over his grievances and not make a big deal out of it. You know she'll do whatever it takes, no matter how long it takes, to fix it. What if it can't be fixed? I asked. What if there's no way to do it right? Jim, I know how much you love Linda and how much she loves you. This shouldn't be a big deal. It's just one night, one moment compared to all the years and all the love you had together. It's not. It's a big problem if you don't make her one. I know she'll come back to you, and I know everything will be fine in the end, she said. Dee spoke gently but confidently. I almost wanted to grab this stupid woman and shake her until her teeth would loosen for such nonsense. She must be living in some alternate universe if she really thinks that way. So if the jerk chose you the way you wanted, would you do the same? I asked her. I would. She threw it in my face. Does Dave know about this? I asked her. No, and he doesn't need to know because I don't think that will ever happen, she said quietly. Maybe I should tell him, I said. Jim, please, no. Don't think like that. I know you're hurting, but it won't help. Please come back to the table. Let us distract you for a while. You haven't danced a single dance with me all night, you know, she said, smiling. I wanted to dance with my wife, but thanks to you, her and the idiot, that's no longer an option, is it? I also wanted to spend the night alone with her, but that's obviously not going to happen, I said. I turned my back to her and walked back to our table. The conversation at the table stopped abruptly when I appeared. The evasive glances told the whole story. All our so-called friends now knew that my wife and the idiot were cuckolding me at that very moment. I wanted to strangle them all. I wanted to blow the place to smithereens. I wanted to find the idiot and rip his balls off. Hey, Jim, are you going to be okay? Dave asked hesitantly after he sat Dee down. I wanted to tell him what Dee said and ask him if he'd be okay, but I couldn't get the words out. Looks like I still couldn't stop being a good guy. Oh yeah, I'll have to work on that. It depends on what you mean by okay, I said. There were a couple of nervous giggles. I mean, yeah, it sucked, but you can handle it, right? You're not going to divorce Linda over this, are you? Dave asked. I see no reason why I shouldn't, I replied coldly. There was a collective gasp of surprise all around. Why are you all so surprised? I asked. We all know how we feel about cheating. Once, and that's it. We established this a long time ago. But Jim, this is Mark Lavalier. Dee interrupted. So what? I don't care who entertains her. If it's not me, then that's it, I said angrily. I looked at Dave. What would you say if it was Dee who went out with a jerk to spend the night? Would you be okay with that? He blushed for a moment, then looked at his wife, who was now intently examining the stain on the floor. Jim, what about the children? We all know how much you love them and how much they need you. Think about them before you do anything, Jane said. Her children were about the same age as mine and were best friends. You mean how my wife thinks about them now? I asked. Well, that's why you got a nanny, so you don't have to think about your kids, Dee said. I think she meant it to be funny, but it sounded as flat as it deserved to sound. Come on, Jim, it's just for one night. This is a chance she'll never get again. You're not going to divorce Linda because of one night, she added. Why the hell not? I looked at her angrily. There was an awkward silence. Jim, try looking at it this way, maybe it will help. Jane tried to sound sympathetic. What if a Sports Illustrated cover model came here tonight, and she chose you out of everyone here to spend the night with? Can you honestly say you wouldn't be tempted? Can you honestly say you refused? Her pleading eyes looked like she was trying to be persuasive, and that usually helped her get what she wanted. But it won't work tonight. I stood up and looked down at Jane. Yes, perhaps I would be tempted, but I would refuse, I said decisively. You see, I have a wife and I don't want to hurt her. At least I didn't until tonight. There was one of those deafening silences again. I looked around the table, taking in the faces of each of my former friends, all of whom were now siding with my cheating wife. At that moment, I sincerely hoped to never see them again. A large and muscular bouncer approached our table. Is there a problem here, guys? He asked in a deep bass voice. Yes, there is a big one, I said. I took out a $20 bill and threw it on the table. Don't worry, I'm leaving, I said, raising my hand. He nodded as I turned to the others. That'll pay my bill. You're covering everything for the bitch I came with. You might as well pay her bill. I turned around and left the club. My irritation subsided a little as I walked the block and half to the hotel. It gave way to the deepest sadness I have ever felt. Linda and I had to walk this path together, teasing our friends about what they were going to do when they got to their rooms and taunting them back. She had to hold my hand the way she used to, pressing her face against my sleeve when the conversation got too explicit. Instead, I was alone. Alone, I rode the elevator, trying not to remember what Linda and I had once done in other hotel elevators. Alone, I walked into what was supposed to be our room. Alone, I faced the ruins of our special night. Alone, I faced the future, not knowing what would happen next. I turned on the light and closed the door behind me. Suddenly, I felt tired beyond words. I threw my winter coat on the floor and wandered into the bedroom. Each pillow was topped with a god of a chocolate. My wife, my lover, my best friend was taken by another man. He carelessly and easily snatched it from under my side, as if he had every right to do so. He didn't care what she meant to me. All he saw in her was a beautiful toy for one night, and she just let him do it. I wasn't important enough to her to cause even the slightest resistance. It seemed that she, too, thought that he had a right to her, stronger than what I had earned through almost 10 years of a faithful, loving husband. Yes, it was supposed to be just one night, and the next morning, I guess. So what? And what will he, and this night, leave in her heart, mind, and feelings? What can I do that compares to this, let alone compete with the town's hero, the handsome one, Mark the Jerk Lavalier? I stopped crying long enough to wash my face, then gathered our things. I threw the bra and panty set into the trash. They didn't mean anything to me anymore. I went down and checked out of the hotel. I didn't care how Linda got home. The girl at the front desk looked puzzled as I went through the checkout process. Is everything okay with your numbers, sir? She asked. The room was great, I said. Is there anything we can do to improve your stay? She answered. Yes, I thought. Make the idiot disappear into a black hole, never to be seen again. Rewind time and bring back my wife. I just shook my head. No, not really, but thanks for asking, I said quietly. We just suddenly had a change of plans. The girl looked at me with sympathy, almost as if she could read my thoughts. I wish you a pleasant evening, sir, she said before I left. Yes, sure. Have a nice evening. I got into the car and by some miracle made it home safe. Inside, I was a ball of nerves, my emotions fighting for control. Part of me was angrier than I had ever been in my life. Another part was devastated by the loss of my wife and our family. I walked into the home we were buying as a starter home and noticed how quiet and empty the place seemed. I threw my bags into the bedroom and sat down, trying to figure out what happened. I looked at my phone, hoping to see a text message or something from Linda. I hoped she would come to her senses and change her mind, but that didn't happen. I lay down on the bed, still in my clothes, and dozed off for a while. At about 2 a.m., my phone rang and woke me up. I looked and saw that I had received several text messages from a number I didn't recognize. Could it be Linda? I took my phone out of my pocket and saw what was on the screen. There were a series of photographs and short videos. I wondered for a moment how he got my number, then realized he probably took Linda's phone while she was in the bathroom and sent the images and videos to me. I threw the phone on the table, and then an idea came to me. Oh yes, the divorce was obvious at this stage. I was ready with Linda forever. But the idiot will pay. I swore that he would pay for ruining my happy life and my family. I went to the computer and copied the images and videos onto it. Then I composed a letter to all of our so-called friends, the ones who contributed to this and covered for her while she went off with the jerk. I attached the video and photos and sent an email with the subject, "Happy now?" I went on a rampage over the next few hours, throwing all of her belongings and personal items into trash bags and stuffing them into her car. By the time I was done, there was barely room in the car for her to get in and drive away. I took her car out of the garage, changed the code so she couldn't get back in, and removed the garage remote from her car. I wasn't done yet and turned my attention to all the things that reminded me of our marriage: the portrait that hung above the fireplace, our wedding album, the wedding dress, the bride and groom's glasses that stood on the mantelpiece, the crystal vase that stood on the opposite end of the shelf. Linda's favorite subject is all of these. By the time I finished, the inside of the house looked like it had been left after the war, with pieces of portraits, knick-knacks, shards of glass, and silk strewn everywhere. I was emotionally drained, my body running on adrenaline as I sat down with a cup of coffee. I heard something hit the door and realized it was the morning newspaper. I didn't even notice how much time had flown by. I opened the door and grabbed the newspaper, then sat down at the kitchen table. What shocked me was when I opened the newspaper and saw the announcement. I flipped to the sports section, and there it was, giant headlines asking, "Who is Mark Lavaliere's new girlfriend? What?" Below the headline was a series of color photographs showing Linda and the idiot leaving the club. The only thing I could think of was that some paparazzo spotted them and took a photo of them leaving the club. Linda held his hand the same way she used to hold mine and looked at him with adoration, the same way she used to look at me. One photo showed them kissing before she got into his Jaguar without a care in the world. My humiliation was complete. Now the whole damn town knows about it. I read the article, but it was full of generalities and guesswork. It looks like neither of them have spoken yet. I went to the newspaper's website, where I found an online version that included not only photos, but also videos. I copied the link to the article and sent it to our supposed friends with the subject line, "Fuck you all." I looked at my watch and saw that it was 5:30 a.m. I knew that Linda's mother was already up at this time, preparing breakfast for her husband, since he is an early riser, so I called. "Hello," she replied. "Everything is fine." "No, it's not like that, Mom," I said. "We got along well, and I always called them Mom and Dad." "What happened, dear?" she asked. "These are kids." "No," I said. "Have you seen today's newspaper yet?" "Not yet," she replied. "Alfred likes to watch it over coffee." "Why?" "He should probably avoid the sports section," I said. "There's an article about Mark Lavaliere that he might not like." "Alfred just adores him," Linda's mother said. "He might not like it when he sees it," I said. "Linda left me at the club we went to last night and left with him, and they were spotted by the paparazzi getting into his car." "Oh my God," she said. "Where is Linda now?" "She's still with him," I said. "What? She spent the night with him?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "There's more to it, but basically this is what happened. I don't know when or if she'll come back, but I can't leave her here. If she ever comes back, I'll kick her out and she'll need a place to stay." "Okay," she said. "Alfred won't be happy about this, and I don't like it. Is there a way you can get over this?" "No, Mom, no," I said. "She deliberately turned her back on me and left with him. and our so-called friends covered for her. "I'm so sorry, Jim," she said. "We raised her better than that. Of course, she can stay here if she needs to. What about the children?" "They're at the nanny's for the night," I said. "I might have to ask my parents to watch them for the rest of the weekend." "Okay," she said. "Let me know if I can help, Jim." "Thank you, Mom. I appreciate it," I said. I had another idea and went back to the computer. I took the link to the asshole article and opened Linda's Facebook page. Until now, we had never had any secrets from each other, so I could log in under her name. I posted a link to her feed with the caption, "Guess what? I made it to the first page of the sports section. I went out with my husband, but ended up spending the night with a real man. I'm lucky." I thought this would get some people's tongues wagging, but I'm not done yet. I found the email address of the reporter who wrote the article. I decided that I had already been humiliated in front of the whole world, so I threw caution to the wind. I sent the reporter a quick email briefly explaining what happened, and then played the videos that the asshole himself had sent me. I left contact information so the reporter could call me back. I sent the email and burst into an evil laugh worthy of Snidely Whiplash. At 8 and I called Mrs. Rowe's reporter and asked if it was okay if my parents picked up the kids that morning. She assured me that this was true and asked if I had seen the sports section in the newspaper. "I have it," I said. "Was it really Linda?" she asked me. "Unfortunately, yes," I said. "That's why I asked parents to pick up their children. I don't want them to be here when she gets back." "Is she still with him?" she asked in shock. "Yes," I said, "and I would appreciate it if you didn't tell the kids anything about this just yet." "I understand," she said. "Sorry, Jim, you don't deserve this." "Thank you," I said, ending the conversation. My next call was to my mother. "Jim, is everything okay?" she asked when she answered the phone. "Your father just read the newspaper, and he can be tied up right now. Is this really Linda?" "Yes, it was, Mom," I said. "She's not home yet. Could you please pick up the children from Mrs. Spray Porter's house this morning? I think they should stay with you for the rest of the weekend. It won't be very good here." "Of course, son," she said. "I completely understand. What are you going to do?" "Raise hell, Mom," I said. "Listen, son, whatever you do, think about the children first, okay? They are the most important things in your life right now," she said. "I know, Mom," I said. "But anyway, thanks for reminding me, and thank you for taking them and letting them stay with you." We ended the conversation, and I took a cup of coffee. I felt the urge to smoke a cigarette, but I fought it and continued. Around 9:30, my phone rang. I saw it was Dee and answered the call. "What?" I barked. "Jim, it's just me, Dee," she said. "I know it's you," I said. "What the hell do you want?" "Jim, I saw the newspaper this morning and wanted to apologize. I never knew it would turn out this bad," she said. "What the hell did you think was going to happen?" I asked. "My wife is leaving with a star football player, a well-known public hero, after a night of dancing. You probably knew that someone would be watching him. And by the way, this is much worse," I added. "What do you mean?" she asked. "You'll just have to wait and see." "By the way, have you looked at Linda's Facebook page?" I asked. "No, I didn't," she said. "Why?" "Look," I said. "Have you checked your email?" "Not yet," she said. "I always prefer to have my morning coffee first." "Well, the answers to your questions are right here," I said. "I hope you're damn happy." I ended the call before she could say anything else, but figured she would call back. After that, they called me a couple more times. One was from Jane, who was completely disgusted by the videos and photos that asshole had sent. "Why are you so surprised?" I asked. "I never thought he would actually do something like that," she said. "What do you mean, seduce my wife or send pictures and videos?" I asked. "Something of a pillar of society, aren't you?" "Jim, what are you going to do?" she asked. "What do you think?" I asked. "You should all be very happy. And now goodbye, and go to hell." I ended the call and sat down to drink coffee, but my phone rang again. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. Mr. Thomas Carlyle? Asked a female voice. That's him, I said. Mr. Carlyle, this is Audrey Tanneys from the Daily Record. I received an email and video from you earlier. Is your wife the woman seen with Mark Lavalier last night? She asked. Yeah, that's the one your photographer took last night with asshole, I said. By whom? She asked. Sorry, that's what I call him, I said. I see, she said. And you're saying that the woman he's with now is your wife, she asked. My soon-to-be ex-wife, I said. So you're going to get divorced because of this? She asked. Absolutely, I replied. You said in your letter that you have other videos and some photos? She asked. Yes, I said. Want to see them? They're pretty revealing. I wish I could, she said. If we use them, we'll mix up the naughty parts. Is there a chance we could meet and discuss this? I'd like to get your side of the story if possible. What the hell, I thought. Of course, I said. I'd like to wait until she gets home, though. She still hasn't returned, Audrey asked. No, not yet, I said. Okay, look, why don't you call me when you can meet and we'll talk about it, she said. Okay, I said. We ended the call and I put the phone back in my pocket. Out of curiosity, I opened her Facebook page and saw many comments on a post I had posted earlier. Opinions were split down the middle, with half of the commenters calling her a lucky woman and asking what it was like to be with a jerk. The other half judged her for the way she left me, calling her a slut and saying they would have kicked her out the door if their wives did the same. I couldn't help but notice that she had lost a number of Facebook friends because of this and chuckled to myself. It was about 11:00 when Linda walked through the door. I looked out the window and saw the Jaguar driving away. Jim, it's me, she said as she took the key out of the lock. I'm home, she announced, as if spending the night with her lover was a normal thing for her. By the way, why is my car in the driveway and not in the garage? And what are these things in it? Her eyes widened when she saw me at the table. I knew I had to look terrible. Her face paled as she looked around the house. The place was an absolute devastation. Oh my God, she exclaimed. What have you done? Everything is destroyed. Our wedding portrait, my vase, our glasses. I just finished what you started last night, I said. Did you sleep at all last night? She asked. I shrugged. What do you care about this? I answered her. Look, I'm sorry about how things happened last night, she said. But I'm here now, and I'm still your wife. I shook my head. She came up to me and tried to kiss me on the cheek, but I stopped her. Don't touch me, I said. She looked shocked, as if I had hit her. And no, you're not my wife anymore. It's in the paper, too. It got out on the internet. I guess it was expected, given his status as a jerk. I opened the newspaper so she could see the spread with all the color photos. Oh no, she said, shocked. How did they take those photos? I'm not his girlfriend. I don't care what the newspaper says. Who cares? I asked. You've had your night, and now we're done. You not only humiliated me in public with our so-called friends, you humiliated me in front of the whole city, the whole damn world, I said, feeling my anger rising. But it was just one night, she said. We have our whole lives ahead of us. I turned on the video. Go away, and let your lover know that if he sets foot here, I will kill him on the spot, I said. Now, go to hell before I throw you out. But I live here too, she said. I shook my head. Not anymore, I said. I'm going to see a lawyer on Monday for a divorce. You don't live here anymore. Your things are in your car, and your mother is waiting for you. From now on, you're dead to me. Got it? I never want to see your face again while I am alive. Now, go away. What about the children? She began to cry. What's wrong with them? I asked. You didn't care about them or me when you left for the asshole. That's not true. And please stop calling him that, she said. Go to hell, I said. Oh, wait, he's already done that. Any man who just walks up and takes a woman without a second thought is a jerk in my book. He knew you were married, and you're not the first person he's done that to. You're not even looked my way when he took you, and now you're defending him against me. You got what you wanted. Now just get out of my sight. You're making me sick." She pulled back, hot tears streaming down her face. "Go, damn it." She jumped up when I screamed and ran down the stairs, sobbing and sobbing. I followed her downstairs and grabbed her bag before she could get to it. I pulled the keys out of her, unplugged the house key, put the keys back, and tossed the bag to her. "Please don't do this," she sobbed in the living room. "I'll fix everything. Just don't throw me away like that. I'm begging you. I never meant to hurt you. I love you." I had never seen such agony on a woman's face, but at that moment I didn't care how she felt. I pointed to the door. "It's bad because now I hate you. Now, for the last time, go away," I said. Shaking and crying, she turned and left the house. I watched as she got into her car, then drove away, wiping tears from her face. Having finished the confrontation, I collapsed on the sofa, completely exhausted, and immediately fell asleep. I woke up later that day and somehow dragged myself to the bathroom where I took a hot shower. So much has happened in the last 24 hours. In that short time, I've gone from being a happily married man with 2 wonderful kids to, what now? I got dressed and looked at my watch. I decided to call Audrey. I was surprised when she answered on the first ring. "Audrey, this is Jim Carlyle," I said. "Good afternoon, Mr. Cuppers Carlyle," she replied. "You sound a little better." "Well, I got some sleep, so I'm feeling a little more alert. Is it too late to meet this afternoon?" I asked. "Not at all," she said. "A reporter's job is never done, you know." I grinned back. "Look, it's getting close to dinner time. Do you mind meeting somewhere? Maybe somewhere quiet where we can talk?" "Of course," I said. "What suits you?" "Well, there's a new restaurant near the mall, Sherry's. Will it be okay? I've been there, and it's pretty quiet. We can talk without interruption," she said. "Yes, I know this place," I said. "We'll meet there." We ended the conversation, and I made another call to my mother. I wanted to talk to the kids to make sure they were okay. They were busy watching Frozen again, but stopped the movie to talk. "Where is Mom?" Emma asked. "She's at her mom's now," I said. "Why doesn't she stay home with you?" she asked. "We're trying to figure out some things," I said. "It's okay. I'm sure you'll see her soon. Look, I have a meeting to go to, but I'll call you later, okay?" "Okay, Dad," she said. "Goodbye." My heart was breaking. Not only did Linda and the jerk ruin my marriage, they also ruined my children's lives, and for that I will never forgive them. Sighing, I left the house and drove to Sherry's. When I arrived, I was shown to a table in the corner where a young, beautiful brunette sat with a laptop. She looked up as I approached, stood up, and introduced herself. We both ordered, and the waitress left us. "Mr. Balthazar Carlyle," she said. "Nice to meet you." "And I'm glad to meet you, Miss Tennis," I said. "Please call me Jim." "Thank you," she said. "And please call me Audrey. I want to start by apologizing." "Apology?" I asked. "For what?" "Well, those were my pictures in the newspaper this morning," she said. "Did you make them?" I asked. She nodded. "I was at the club last night with friends," she said. "Bachelorette party. We were just having fun, and I happened to notice Mark Lavalier. I saw him walk up to your table and return to the dance floor with that woman. The way they acted, I would never have thought that she might be married. When they left the club, I followed them outside and took some pictures and videos that you saw in the newspaper. It's nothing compared to what I got." "Oh God," I said. "I have all of this, and I can give you a copy if you want," she said. "I caught it on my camera, so it's okay. Would you like to see?" "Why not?" I said. She gave me the tablet and opened the video. I saw Linda and Asshole walk into the parking lot, their hands intertwined like Linda and I had done before. His hands were on her back and buttocks. She seemed to like the gesture and responded by grabbing his ass. When they got to his car, he took it for a spin, and they both shared a deep tongue kiss. Looking at this, no one could know that she was married to someone else. At that moment, I realized that she had completely forgotten about me and the children. When the video ended, I returned the tablet to her. "Like I said, I'm really sorry," she said. I put something together very quickly and sent it to the newspaper, and then went back inside. When I arrived, you were no longer there. So, do you want to tell me your side of the story? I nodded my head and remembered the evening from my point of view. Then I pulled out my phone and handed it to her along with my headphones. You might want to take a look at them, I told her. The video is pretty graphic. I'm a big girl, she said, putting in her headphones. When she did, our food was delivered. While I ate, I watched her reaction. There was no reaction at first, but as the video continued, her face changed. When she finished, she gave my phone back. Fine, I asked. This confirms some of the things I've heard, she said. So what are you going to do? She asked. I'm going to get a divorce, I replied. She knew my stance on fidelity when she did it, but obviously she didn't care. She got her night, now we're done. Do you have children? She asked. 2, a boy and a girl, I said. 6 and 4 years old. She shook her head. It's always the hardest for the kids, she said. Yes, that's right, I said. What about him? Mark, she asked. I shrugged. I don't know yet, I said. Part of me wants to beat him to a pulp, but I don't want to go to jail. He's a football star, she said. No offense, but I don't think you'd stand a chance if you tried. I laughed. What's so funny? She asked. Let's put it this way, this wouldn't be the first time someone underestimated me, I said. Size doesn't always matter, you know. What does it mean? She asked. My father always told me that in a fight, it's not the size of the dog that matters, but the size of the fight in the dog, I said. She nodded. I understand, she said. So are you going to look for trouble? No, I said. I've got 2 kids to think about, but I'm not just going to give up either. Have you spoken to a lawyer yet? She asked. Not yet, and besides, this all just happened last night, I said. She took a business card from her purse and handed it to me. A good friend of mine happens to be a family law attorney, she said. She hates cheaters with a passion, and she doesn't really like Lavalier either. I can call her and warn her if you want. I looked at the business card. It said Lisa Hawkins, attorney. Sure, thanks, I said. I don't want to seem ungrateful, but I was wondering why you're helping me. That's a fair question, she said. As a journalist, I have a nose for a good story. I'd like to tell you, if you don't mind. Plus, I like it when guys like Lavalier get what they deserve. So this is kind of personal to you? I asked. A little, she said. So what do you want from me? I asked. Exclusive. Something like that, she said. What exactly does this mean? I asked her. This means that you will let me tell you your side of the story, help control the flow of information, she said. We? I asked. Yes, she said. Lisa and me. What do I get out of this? I asked her. For starters, some protection from others like me who would want your story, she said. I know how people like Lavalier work. This story is going viral right now. I'm sure he and his people are already planning something that will end up making you look bad. That's what they do. Trust me, if you act rashly, they'll tear you apart so fast you won't even know what happened. And don't expect any mercy from the national sports press. They're as brutal as anyone in the news business. You'll need someone who knows how. Handle sharks, and they will come for you as soon as they identify them. So what should we do? I asked. Have you thought about suing Lavalier? She asked. Yes, I thought about that, I said. I was thinking about a lot of other things too. Okay, she said. Let me find out a little bit about what they're planning to do. I'd like to put a little note in tomorrow's paper that you're considering legal action for ruining your marriage and family. Is that okay with you? I thought about her question before answering. I knew she was right, and I also knew that Linda's identity would soon be revealed publicly. Perhaps it would be better if I spoke in public first before they had a chance to humiliate me further. Okay, I said, but we will work together on this, and I have veto power if I think it could harm children. I agree, she said. I'll make a few calls and we'll get moving. By the way, you should know that the local news stations will be covering this tonight. I've already been contacted by several of them. What did you tell them? I asked. I haven't said anything yet, she said. I wanted to talk to you first. I appreciate it, I said. We finished lunch and said goodbye. I hoped I was doing the right thing. Looking at the time, I decided to go to the children and talk to the parents about this whole situation. Checking my phone, I saw that there were no calls or messages from Linda. I arrived at my parents' house and went inside. My children ran out to meet me, and I hugged and kissed them. Where is Mom? Asked Emma. She's with her parents, I said. Why? Asked Emma. She has things to do, I said, not wanting to reveal too much too soon. My parents came into the room, and we hugged for a minute before sitting down. Are you okay, son? Asked the father. I shook my head. Not really, Dad, I said. I'm better than I was, but it's hard. I understand, he said. At that moment, the TV was turned on. My dad is a news junkie, so he turned up the volume, and we started watching the news, despite the objections of the kids who thought it was boring. However, a few minutes later, news appeared on the air that attracted everyone's attention. And now our section talk of the city, said the male announcer. The Daily reported this morning that star football player Mark Lavalier was seen leaving a local nightclub with what is believed to be his new girlfriend. Video released by the newspaper shows them leaving the club and getting into his car. The scene changed to a short video posted online earlier that day. Linda and the rascal are clearly visible walking arm in arm, and she is easily recognized when she turns to kiss him. Daddy, why is Mommy kissing this man? Emma asked in surprise. Is he her boyfriend? Just watch the news, Emma, I said. Timmy didn't understand everything his sister said, but it was clear he wasn't happy. The announcer continued. We spoke with Audrey Tannies, the reporter who broke the story, and she says the woman, who appears to be married, has been identified. Tannies continued that her husband did not give permission for her name to be published. We contacted Lavalier and Sharks Management, but they did not comment. According to Tannies, more information will follow soon, perhaps tomorrow, he said. Dad turned off the TV, and Mom quickly took the children to the bedroom where they were sleeping. Come on, kids, she said, leading them into another room. Dad turned to me. What are you going to do, son? He asked. I'm filing for divorce, Dad, I said. He nodded his head. I don't blame you, he said. You know this probably means she'll get the kids and you'll be financially devastated. Probably, I said. But I can't live with her. Not after this. By the way, I spoke to the reporter who broke the story. Oh, yes, he asked. Yes, I said. She offered to tell my side of the story and help me. The next few days will not be easy. This is just the beginning. Once this hits the media, it will be a circus. By then, my mother had returned and sat with us. Look, the kids can stay here for a while if they have to, she said. That way they won't have a lot of prying reporters. Your mother is right, son, said Dad. They can stay here as long as needed. I thought before answering. You're right, I said. Thank you. I'll bring more of their stuff tomorrow. If you need anything, let me know. Linda will want to see them, Mom said. Technically, we can't stop her without a restraining order. I know, I said. God, this is all so confusing. Why did she do it? She probably should have known it would end badly. It's hard to say, son, said the father. Do what you have to. We'll help in any way we can. Just don't do anything stupid. Thanks, Dad, I said. We hugged and I spent some time with the kids. Little Emma came up to me with tears in her eyes. Are you going to get a divorce? She asked. I couldn't lie to her and pretend everything would be fine. Looks like it, honey, I said. But remember that no matter what happens, we all love you very much. I held her while she cried on my shoulder. Damn Linda, I thought. Damn you. After I spent some time with the children, I returned to the living room. I have to go, I said. I need to tidy up the house a little. Mom came out with a dish of lasagna. Take this with you, she said. You need to keep up your strength. Thank you, Mom, I said, taking the dish. I love lasagna, and my mom's lasagna was the best I've ever eaten. We said goodbye, and I went home. When I got home, I put the lasagna in the refrigerator, then checked Linda's Facebook page and saw that the message was still there. It has now received over 500,000 views and many comments. Most of them were negative. I also noticed that she had lost almost 3/4 of her friends. I smiled to myself and turned off the computer. I had cleaned up the place from last night's mess and was getting ready to reheat my mom's lasagna when I heard the doorbell ring. Damn, I thought. I went to the door and looked through the peephole. It was Dee and Dave. What the hell did they want? I opened the door slightly. What the hell do you want? I hissed. They both jumped back in surprise. Can we talk, Jim? Dee asked. Please? For what? I asked. Because we're friends and we care about you, she said. I snorted. Friends? I asked. With friends like you, there's no need for enemies. Please, Jim, can we come in and talk for a minute? Dee begged. I thought for a moment, then decided to let them inside. They looked around, shocked. Everything that belonged to Linda was gone, but the remains of the destroyed wedding portrait still hung above the fireplace. So, what do you want? I asked, pouring myself a cup of coffee. I didn't offer them anything, and I could see that they noticed. They didn't say anything. Jim, first of all, we want to apologize for last night, Dee said. I saw the video you sent us, and I read the report. We didn't know it would be this bad, and we just wanted to apologize. You didn't know, huh? I asked with contempt. But you knew she was married last night when you literally pushed her into his bed, didn't you? Yes, we knew, Dee admitted. And more importantly, Linda knew she was married when she left with him, I added. The simple truth is that none of you cared. Not one, not even Linda. You all knew she was married, but not one of you even thought of me to try to stop her. Did you? They looked at each other bashfully. All that once and for all lie didn't make any difference, did it? I asked. I guess not, Dee muttered. You know, Linda is terrified right now. We're really worried about her. She's just lying on her mom's bed crying. I'm afraid she's on the verge of a nervous breakdown. I went to my bookshelf and pulled out a thick dictionary. I threw it on the coffee table. The noise it made as it fell made them both jump. Do you want sympathy? I asked. I nodded towards the dictionary. Look between the treason and the harlot. There you will find it. You won't get it from me, and neither will she. They looked at me, shocked. God, this really destroyed you, didn't it? Dave asked. You have no idea, I said. I'm on the verge of shooting someone right now, I said, showing the distance between my thumb and forefinger. The only reason I didn't do it is because someone needs to think about the kids. God knows neither you nor Linda were thinking about that last night. So what are you going to do now? Dave asked. It should be obvious, I said. Thanks to all of you, I was humiliated by the whole world. That article has already gone viral, and now it has been viewed by at least 1 million people. Anyone who knows Linda can clearly see that it is her, so I have no choice. I have to get a divorce with her. I looked at Dee. And you will be mentioned too, I added. Me? Asked Dee. Why? Because you basically helped her destroy our family, I said. It's like being an accessory to a crime. You could have stopped her, but you consciously decided not to, and then you tried to justify your actions to me. By the way, did you tell your husband what you told me? Dave looked at her, frowning. What did you tell him? He asked. She lowered her head, her face turning red. He looked at me before speaking. What did she tell you? She told me that if the jerk had approached her instead of Linda, she would have happily done the same thing as Linda, and she was very proud of it, I said. Angry, he turned to her. This is true? He asked. We'll discuss this when we get home. She looked at me angrily. I asked you not to tell him, she said. I shrugged. It's a pity, I said. I think your husband deserves to know what kind of woman he has, don't you? So that's it? She asked. For the most part, I said. They stood up to leave, but Dee made one last attempt to protect Linda. I understand if you don't want to be our friend anymore, she said. But can't you find it in your heart to forgive Linda just this once? She really loves you." I shook my head. "Are you really that naive, Dee?" I asked. "No, I can't forgive her. And I never will. She destroyed me with her betrayal, and you helped her. I will never be able to look at both of you the same way." She looked devastated as she nodded her head. "Okay," she said quietly. "If it means anything, I'm sorry." I said nothing, nodding my head. Yes, I thought, she regrets it. Dave extended his hand, then changed his mind and pulled it back. "I'm sorry too," he said. "We're all sorry. I hope we see you later." I muttered in response, not wanting to say anything to my former friends. I watched them leave, Dee wiping away her tears. I closed the door, locked it, and went to the kitchen to have dinner. After dinner, I lay down on my bed, exhausted. I fell asleep almost immediately. The next day I got up, went through my morning rituals, and picked up the newspaper before making coffee. I looked at the large cast iron skillet Linda had left on the stove and thought about cooking the bacon and eggs, but decided against it. I quickly ate a bowl of porridge and a piece of toast, then opened the newspaper and turned to the sports section. "Lost man considers suing Sharks tight end Mark Lavaliere." Read a large headline. This should be interesting, I thought. Audrey did a great job with what I told her yesterday. I noticed that she avoided mentioning my name, claiming that I spoke to her anonymously. The man, who identified himself as the woman's husband, also provided a graphic video that apparently showed sexual activity between the woman he claims to be his wife and Lavaliere, the article said. According to the husband, his wife's friends allegedly helped her escape with Lavaliere. Attempts to contact these people have so far been unsuccessful. Like all other players on the team, Lavaliere's contract with the team includes a very strict code of ethics. Violation of this contract and failure to abide by this code could potentially expose the team to legal action. We reached out to team management as well as Lavaliere for comment. We received no response from the team, and Lavaliere simply said, "No comment," the article concluded. Satisfied, I closed the newspaper and took a sip of coffee. My phone rang, and I looked to see who was calling. It was a text from Audrey. "I hope you read the newspaper this morning," the text read. I answered. "Yes, I read it. Great article." "Thank you," I wrote. Received another text. "Expect a call very soon." I thanked her again and put the phone in my pocket. Sure enough, a few seconds later it rang again. I looked and saw a call from a number I didn't recognize. I responded, wondering who it could be. "Jim Carlisle," I said. "Mr. Percy Carlisle, this is Lisa Hawkins," a friendly female voice answered. "I got your number from Audrey Tanny's and wanted to call you. I hope I didn't catch you at the wrong time." "There are no good times these days," I said. "But I'm glad you called, Miss Hawkins. How can I help you?" "As soon as I can help you," she said. "You can start by calling me Lisa." "Okay, Lisa," I said. "And please call me Jim." "Thank you, Jim," she said. "Audrey told me about you last night, and I wanted to contact you after you read her article. I'm assuming you read it." "Yes," I said, "and I think she did great." "I think so too," she said. "Listen, Jim, I'd like to introduce you, if you don't mind. Is it true that you're considering suing Lavaliere and the team, as well as divorcing your wife?" "Yes, it is," I said. "Then you're in luck," she said. "Because not only is adultery an acceptable ground for divorce in our state, it is also illegal, although not prosecuted. And suits for breaking up family relationships are acceptable in our state. I think you have a very strong case. I understand you have children." "Yes," I said. "Boy and girl." "Are you going to ask for custody of them?" she asked. "Of course," I said. "It might be a little difficult, but we can certainly ask for it," she said. "Listen, I would like to start collecting documents today. I would like you to bring everything you have on your finances and any evidence of their connection. You can meet me in my office tomorrow morning, say at 8 o'clock. "Yes," I said. "I can do it. How about a few? Don't you need a deposit or anything?" "Usually, yes," she said. "But I'm ready to do it for free for you." Thank you, but why would you do that? I asked. I'll tell you someday, just not now, not over the phone, she said. Okay, I said. One last thing, Jim, she said. What is this? I asked. After this morning's article, you'll likely get a call from the Sharks' legal team, she said. Don't give in to them. At all. Just tell them they can expect a response from your lawyer. Can you do that? Of course, I said. Great, she said. And don't do anything stupid. I laughed at this. I promise I won't, I said. We said goodbye and ended the conversation. Looking at the time, I decided to go to the children. I went back upstairs and put on clean jeans and a shirt. Someone was knocking on the door when I returned. I looked through the peephole and saw two well-dressed men in dark suits. Probably from Sharks, I thought, remembering Lisa's warning. I opened the door. Yes, how can I help you? I asked calmly. Mr. Genny Carlyle, said one of the men. My name is Roger Billings, and this is Jack Dunstan. We're from the Sharks. Can we come in and talk for a few minutes? Suddenly, I recognized Dunstan from the photographs I had seen in the newspaper and on television. He was the owner of the Sharks. I assumed Roger was probably a lawyer. I opened the door and invited them in. Please come in, I said. Can I get you something to drink? No, thanks, Jack said. We won't take up much of your time. We're just here to discuss your, problem with Mark Lavalier. Problem? I asked. You mean how he destroyed my marriage and my family and threatened to continue to do so? Is that the issue you're discussing? Well, yeah, Jack said, clearly embarrassed by my words. He turned to Roger. Show him the proposal and let's finish this, please. Roger opened his briefcase and took out an envelope and a folder. He handed me an envelope and motioned for me to open it. I did this, and when I looked inside, I was shocked. I felt my face turn red as I looked at the two men. Is everything all right, Mr. Carlyle? Asked Jack. Are you kidding me? I said. Is there a problem, Mr. Carlyle? Asked Roger. Everything seems okay. $1,000? I asked. You're offering me $1,000 for what that worm did to me and my family. That's not an offer. That's an insult. Wait, Mr. Carlyle, said Jack. This does not include lifetime game passes and all the merchandise you want from our gift shop. This costs a significant amount of money. I almost laughed out loud. And what is this in exchange for? I asked. Roger opened the folder and showed me the unsigned document. As stated herein, we ask only that you refrain from filing a lawsuit against the team or Mr. Lavalier, he said. I looked at the document and could not believe what I read. And you won't do anything about Lavalier? I asked. What about the moral clause in his contract? Roger shrugged. Listen, Mr. Carlyle, said Jack. Boys will be boys. Mr. Lavalier is a highly respected member of the team with a very high status in the community. We only ask that you reconsider the possibility of legal action. We do not want anyone's reputation to be damaged. You understand that, right? What I understand is that Lavalier ruined my marriage, I said, and he's already ruined my reputation. The articles and pictures of him with my wife have already gone viral. What about my two children? How do you propose to compensate for the loss of their mother and their family? Do you think lifetime memberships and nice merch will make up for that? What would you like us to do? Jack asked condescendingly. Oh, I don't know. Maybe you could undo my wife's cheating or turn back time to Thursday and stop him before he met her, I said sarcastically. We can't do any of that, Mr. Carlyle, Roger said. Perhaps you would like to make a counter-proposal. You will hear from my lawyer. This meeting is over. Please leave. They looked at each other, then stood up. Jack tried to shake my hand, but I didn't accept it. They nodded their heads and walked out the door. After they left, I called Lisa to tell her what had happened. Then I called my parents and went to their place to spend time with the children. Emma was still disturbed by the fact that she had seen Linda kiss another man. I talked to the parents for a bit and decided to take the kids to Chuck E. Cheese to distract them a bit before picking up more of their stuff. We had a good time, and for a while the kids were kids again, laughing and playing. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, and this was no exception. They winced a little, but followed me as we headed to the car. We went up to their rooms and gathered some things to take to the grandparents' house, then went back downstairs. Next thing I know, the front door swung open. I saw that the door frame was broken, and the next thing I saw was Lavalier in all his rage, standing there looking at me. "You're dead," he shouted. "I'll kill you for what you did. All I wanted was to have a little fun, but you had to make a whole damn story out of it." I tried to say something but couldn't because his fist found my face and sent me back. After the stars disappeared from my vision, I realized that I needed to find something for self-defense, since I knew that my fists would not be enough. I heard Emma scream. I was filled with rage and remembered the iron pan on the stove. Then everything is like a fog. I protected my family. At that moment, I heard a voice behind me. "Drop the frying pan, sir," said the man. I let go of the cast iron skillet and turned around, hearing it hit the floor. "Stay where you are with your hands on your head." I obeyed the policeman's order and put my hands behind my head. He handcuffed my hands. Once he was sure I was no longer a threat, he picked me up. "Officer, he broke into my house and scared my daughter," I said. I looked at Emma and saw her sitting in front of the fireplace, sobbing. "I know," he said. "Your neighbor across the street saw him break in and called 911. I got there as quickly as I could. Are you okay?" Damn, was I really that fast? I asked myself. "My face hurts," I said. He looked at me and nodded. "Yeah, you'll have a bruise, that's for sure," he said. He walked up to Emma and examined her. She was alarmed and scared. He made a call on the radio, then returned to me. "Officer, can I call my parents to come get the kids?" I asked. He looked around for a moment before answering. "Do you have a weapon?" he asked. I shook my head. "No, officer, that's why I took the frying pan," I said. "Okay," he said, releasing me from the cuffs. "I'll have to take your statement." "Thank you," I said. "Will I be arrested?" "I don't think so," he said. "In my opinion, he broke into your place, attacked you. You were simply protecting your children. Unless they tell me otherwise, no, I will not arrest you. But I will arrest him." I picked up my phone, which fell out of my pocket when Lavalier hit me. I called my parents, and my father said he would come right away. By that time, an ambulance had stopped in front of our house, and the doctors went inside. They checked Emma to make sure she was okay, then checked me before turning their attention to Lavalier, who was still unconscious on the floor. As he was being carried out on a stretcher, my father approached the house. "What the hell happened?" he asked upon entering. "We had an uninvited guest," I replied. He looked at my face for a second. "Damn, boy, this is going to look terrible for a long time," he said. He looked at Emma, who was crying on the couch. He took her in his arms and hugged her. "It's okay, honey. The bad man is gone." He looked around for a minute. "Where's Timmy?" Timmy hid under the table and was almost invisible because of the long tablecloth. We saw him peek out from under the table. "It's okay, son," I said. "You can come out." He crawled out from under the table and came up to us. My father looked at the policeman. "Can we leave now?" he asked. The policeman nodded. "Yes, everything is fine," he said. "I'll need to talk to your son some more, but you don't have to be here." "Thank you," he said. He collected the children and their things, then returned to me. "Come back when they're done, okay?" "Okay, Dad, thanks," I said. I hugged the children and kissed them goodbye, telling them I would follow them soon. After they left, the policeman and I sat on the sofa while he took my statement. I couldn't believe it all happened so quickly. "It's a good thing your neighbor called when he did," the policeman said. "I was only a couple blocks away when I got the call. I've been following this story about Lavalier." "Was it your wife he was seen with?" I nodded. "Yes," I said. "I'm sorry to hear that," he said. "Call if you need to talk to someone," he added, handing me a card with the name and number of the consultant. "Thank you, officer. I appreciate it," I said. He left after shaking my hand, and I was left standing in the front room, looking at the remains of my front door. Fred, the neighbor who called the police, came over and assessed the door. "Are you okay, Jim?" he asked. "Now, yes," I said. "Thanks for calling the cops." "You're welcome. I saw him break in the door, and I was just in front with the lawnmower. What did you do with that guy?" "I pressed it into place with a frying pan, so to speak," I said. He laughed. "Remind me never to make you angry," he said. "Just curious, why did he break down your door? It wasn't locked or anything, was it?" "No, I wasn't," I said. "And even the security screen wasn't locked. All he had to do was turn the doorknob. He was probably too pissed off to try." "Well, I guess we can still close the door, but the frame is all broken," he said. "Might have to screw it down until you can replace it. I'll go get my drill and some screws and help you with that if you want." "That would be great, Fred," I said. "Thanks. I'll take my drill too." With Fred's help, we were able to close the door, but I had to screw it down due to the damage Lavalier caused when he broke it down. Luckily, the deadbolt wasn't locked at the time, so I was still able to use it. "That's it," he said. "Let me know when you get your replacement, and I'll help you install it." "Thanks again," I said. Another thing my cheating wife has ruined, I thought. I made 2 quick calls, one to Lisa and one to Audrey. Lisa wasn't thrilled with what happened, but she was glad it ended well, and she was especially glad that I wasn't in jail and the kids were relatively okay. She even liked the fact that Lavalier was in the hospital and would be arrested. Audrey told me she heard the call on her police scanner and had already spoken to the reporter who was covering the police calls. "You know I can't keep you anonymous anymore," she said. "It'll all be in the police report." "I know," I told her. We talked some more, and she told me to stay tuned. "Now everyone will be talking about it," she said. After we finished talking, I went to the shower. I decided that I needed to make another call and dialed my boss's number. I explained the situation and said that I needed to take a few days to sort everything out. "Damn," she said. "You had one hell of a weekend. No problem, you've got plenty of makeup time. So take a week and get things done, okay?" "I'll do that, thanks, boss," I said. We ended the conversation and I went to my parents and children. Linda arrived at their house at the same time as me. I didn't expect to see her and didn't know what to expect. I got out of the car at the same time as she did, and we met on the path leading to the front door. She was shocked to see me. "Oh God, are you okay?" she asked. I shook my head. "What's happened?" "It's a little late to be interested in my well-being, don't you think?" I said sarcastically. "You want to know what happened? Your lover happened. He came to the house to start a fight. Don't worry, I'll put your big frying pan in his place." "Did you hurt him too much?" she asked. I couldn't believe her words. "He's been taken to the hospital," I said. "I don't know what condition he's in, and I don't care. I know he'll be in custody for a while. They'll charge him. Why are you here, by the way?" "I came to see the children," she said. "I miss them, and I haven't seen them since. Well, you know." "You mean since the night you left for Lavalier?" I asked her. "It's about time. It's only been, what, 36 hours? And you're just now thinking about them." "Please," she said. "This man ruined our marriage, Linda, and you helped him without thinking about me or the children," I said, feeling my anger rising. "He destroyed our family, and you protect him." I entered the house, and she followed me. Everyone turned in our direction when we entered. The kids huddled close to their grandmother, who was now in Mama Grizzly mode. "What do you want?" she barked at Linda. "I want to see my children," Linda said. Timmy hugged my mom tighter. Emma looked at her mother, not hiding her disgust. "Why did you kiss that man, Mom?" she asked. "Which man?" Linda asked. "That man," Emma said, pointing at the TV. We looked and saw Lavalier's face on the screen. "Latest news on Eyewitness News," read the newscaster. Shark's tight end Mark Lavalier is now facing multiple felony charges after he reportedly broke down the door of the home of a woman he was seen with Friday night. He allegedly assaulted the woman's husband, according to police. The report states that the husband protected his home and his children with a large cast-iron frying pan. Lavalier is currently at County Hospital being treated for a serious head injury and other injuries, the announcer continued. The district attorney has stated that charges will be filed and Lavalier will be arrested once his medical condition improves. Sharks Management just released a statement saying Lavalier has been suspended pending the outcome of the investigation. The scene changed to Roger and Jack standing behind a microphone. We regret to report that tight end Mark Lavalier is currently in the hospital receiving treatment, Jack said. We have read the police report and would like to express our apologies to the family he attacked. For the record, we contacted the husband and made what we believe was a more than reasonable offer. However, he declined it. How do you feel about the charges being brought forward? Asked one of the reporters. The charges appear to include terroristic threats, unlawful entry, assault. We have no comment at this time, Roger responded. However, we have suspended Mr. Besachi Lavalier from gaming with benefits pending the outcome of the investigation. He is still unconscious at this time, so we have not heard his side of the story. That is all for now. Thank you. The scene changed back to the studio. This is a developing story, the announcer said. Stay tuned to Eyewitness News for more updates. Everyone turned to Linda when the broadcast ended. Oh my God, she said quietly. Unconscious. What other injuries are they discussing, Jim? What did you do to him? That's it, I said. Worry about your lover, not your family. Linda tried to approach Emma, but the little girl retreated. My mother intervened. Haven't you hurt these kids enough? She asked. This family? I think it would be wise for you to leave now, Linda, my father said, while you can. And Linda, my mother added, you are no longer welcome in this house. With tears in her eyes, Linda looked at the children, at my mother, then at my father, and finally at me. There was not an iota of sympathy for her in this room. She turned, dejected, and headed for the door. It was just one night, she sobbed as she left. After she left, I hugged the children as they cried on my shoulder. They eventually calmed down, and I kissed them good night and left after saying goodbye. I got home and reminded myself to enter through the garage since my front door wasn't working. As I walked inside, my phone rang. I looked and saw a call from LW, a close family friend who had recently retired after many years as an attorney. He was one of the smartest and wisest people I knew, and the best friend a family like ours could have. Hi, LW, I said, answering. Hello myself, said the old man. I saw the report. I followed the story and recognized Linda from the photographs in the newspaper. Are you and the children okay? Not really, I said. Is it true that you hit Lavalier with a frying pan? He asked. Yes, that's true, I said. He laughed. Well done, he said. I assume you're filing for divorce from Linda. Yes, I replied. Isn't there a chance you can fix this? He asked. It will be a shame if you split up. No chance, LW, I said. I told him about the videos Lavalier sent and what he was saying. Well, that complicates things, he said. Have you spoken to a lawyer yet? I have a meeting with Lisa Hawkins in the morning, I said. Hawkins, huh? He asked. Ice Queen. Ice Queen? I asked. Yes, she is as cold as ice in court, he said. If you want to burn the earth, she's your girl. But she's also one of the most expensive family law attorneys in the state. Are you sure you can afford this? She said she would take my case for free, I said. Is it true, LW? I was surprised. Any idea why? Not yet, I said. Maybe we should ask, he suggested. I'll ask, I said. We talked a little more about this and that. If you need anything, let me know, he said. Thank you, I said, ending the conversation. I ate dinner, then packed up the things Lisa said she wanted to see. I went to bed and slept restlessly. The next morning after breakfast, I left the house. About halfway to Lisa's office, my phone rang. I saw that it was a call from Linda's mother, so I answered using a Bluetooth headset so as not to be caught talking while driving. "Jim, you need to come to the hospital," she said in a panic. "Why?" I asked. "This is Linda," she said. "She tried to kill herself last night." "Tried to commit suicide and even ruined that, huh?" I asked coldly. "Sorry, I have something important to do right now. Maybe I'll stop by after the meeting." "Jim, she's still your wife and the mother of your children," she said. "And she's in the hospital. Do you have any feelings for her at all?" "Why do you think she's there?" I asked. "And do you think she even thought about the kids when she left with that worm? Or about me? I have a meeting with a lawyer. Maybe I'll stop by when I'm done there." "Please, Jim, she's in terrible shape," she said. "It completely destroyed her." "It's her own fault," I said. "How can you be so cold?" she asked. "Linda loves you and the kids." "I feel this love, believe me," I said. "I better go. I'll pick you up when I'm done." She gave me the room number, and I said goodbye, hanging up. I parked in an underground garage in the city center, and then headed to the building where Lisa's office was located. I was greeted by an attractive young brunette secretary who directed me to a chair in the waiting area while she called Lisa. A few minutes later, a petite blonde in a pantsuit came out and showed me inside. Moving into the office, she turned around and extended her hand to me. "I'm Lisa Hawkins," she said with a smile. "Nice to finally meet you, Jim." "Mutually," I said, "though I would prefer the circumstances were different." "Me too," she said. "Well, let's get straight to the point, shall we? Did you bring the information I asked for?" "I brought it," I said, pulling out a folder with our financial information. I also gave her the USB drive with the videos Lavalier sent. She looked over everything briefly, nodding and taking notes as she went. "So," she said when she finished, "here's what I think we should do. We'll file for divorce citing infidelity as a ground. In this state, infidelity can be used as leverage against any form of alimony, plus it looks like you both make about the same. Usually the state splits everything in half, but in your case, I think we can get a little more. We will ask for physical custody, but you should know that usually the court will award it to the mother unless it is proven that she is not suitable as a mother." "Well, she tried to kill herself last night," I said. Her eyes lit up as she smiled. "Very interesting," she said. "It could be argued that a person who tries to kill herself is not mentally strong enough to care for children. By the way, I will need to file for a restraining order against her and Lavalier." "Even though he's in the hospital and will be charged?" I asked. "Especially because he will be charged," she replied. "He has already shown that he is willing to break the law and attack you and your children. I would say that makes him dangerous, and I think the court will agree. Just because he's been charged doesn't mean the court won't let him off the hook. Bail or not released on parole. By the way, do you have a weapon?" I shook my head. "No, I don't have one," I said. "That's why I took the frying pan." She laughed. "Okay," she said. "Remind me to never make you angry, at least not in the kitchen. By the way, where are your kids now?" "My parents have them," I said. "Okay, we'll include them and their parents' house in the restrictive order," she said. She then pulled out another set of documents. "I have also started working on a lawsuit against Lavalier and the team," she said. "You should know that usually suits for breaking up family relationships usually don't go far. However, I think your case will be supported by the video he sent you and the charges stemming from his attack on you. I did some research and found out that overall it's worth about $125 million. I think $25 million would be a reasonable amount considering what it did to you and your family. It doesn't mean you'll get that much, but it's worth a try. Since we know he's done this to other people, maybe we can convince them to come forward. Maybe we can make a class action out of this. What do you say to that?" "You are a lawyer," I said. "Do as you see fit." "Okay," she said. "It won't be easy, but we can try. I think we can do the same for the team, since all players are required to sign a moral agreement. It will depend on what they do with it after the charges are made. You should know that this will not be an easy battle." "I already understood that," I said. Well, as far as it goes, I think the divorce itself can be worked out pretty quickly, she said. In this state, adultery is still a misdemeanor, even though no one has ever been prosecuted for it. I don't agree with that law, but it's still in effect. We can use that to our advantage. If she tries to contest the divorce, we can use this as a bargaining chip. If she doesn't contest the divorce, it could be finalized within 3 to 6 months. Legal action will take more time and effort, but I think we will win in the end. Do you have any questions yet? Only one, I said. Which? She asked. You said you were doing this for free, I said. Why are you doing this? You know, you're not the only one who's been hurt by Lavalier, right? She asked. I nodded. He seduced my fiancée years ago, before he became the star he is now. Wait, what? I asked. She shook her head. She smiled and explained. We got engaged after the Obergefell decision, which allowed same-sex marriage nationwide in 2015. The situation was similar to yours. She fell in love with him at first sight, much like your wife. After that, nothing was the same between us. Like before, I broke off the engagement and honestly wanted to get back at him, but the opportunity never came until you showed up. Most of his victims usually hide in shame after they were insulted. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. Are you still friends? We communicate, but I wouldn't say we're friends, she said. I've moved on, and so has she. She stopped and looked at me seriously before continuing. Does my life choice bother you? She asked. I shook my head. Not at all, I said, making her smile. Okay, she said. Glad to hear that. So, you and Audrey Tannies are, together, I asked. She laughed and shook her head. We are good friends, but that's all, she replied. And no, there's nothing between us, but I don't mind spending time with her. Why? Have you thought about dating her? She loves you, you know. I've never seen her take anything so personally. Stories. That's the last thing I'm thinking about right now, I said. These days, my children are the most important thing in my life. As it should be, she said. What they need most right now is their father. Look, let me get started on all this, and I should have the divorce papers ready in a day or two. If your wife is still in the hospital, maybe we can serve her the papers there. I'd like to be there when she gets them, if possible, I said. I think we can arrange this, she said. She stood up, signaling that the meeting was over. I'll get back to you. Be careful, okay? I stood up and we shook hands again. After I left her office, I headed to the hospital to inquire about Linda's condition. I parked the car, then went inside. When I arrived at her room, her mother was talking to the doctor. She looked terrible. Oh, it's good that you finally came, her mother said. They're monitoring her around the clock, and they'll be running tests on her. They're worried that she might have brain damage since she was unconscious for so long. She almost died, you know. What's happened? I asked. After she got back from you and the kids, she came upstairs. I heard her crying, so I went to check, she said. I hugged her for a long time, and she seemed fine, so I gave her a sleep tincture. When I checked on her early in the morning, I saw an open bottle of sleeping pills next to her glass, which was empty. I called 911, and she was brought in. Here, once the doctor says she's stable, they'll send her to the psychiatric ward. How long will she be here? I asked. A few days, she replied. I called her work, and they gave her a sick leave. Why? Are you going to serve her divorce papers right here at the hospital? If she's here, then yes, I replied. How can you? She asked. It'll kill her. She's already on edge. The hard truth, I said. She looked at me, shocked. Jim Carlyle, how can you be so cruel and cold? She asked. I looked at her before answering. I can be as cruel and cold as necessary, I said. She knew what she was doing when she left me, but she didn't care. Now she has to pay for what she did to our family. I looked at Linda and saw a tear roll down her cheek. I shook my head and left the room. When I got home, I tried to take my mind off Linda. The first thing I did was fix the door, so I went online and looked up door prices. I realized that I would have to pay for the door frame as well. Crap. I took measurements and ordered a new door online. I also ordered new locks for the door. The site said my order would be delivered the next day, so I went to a neighbor, Fred, who said he would help me install the new door when it arrived. The next 2 days were pretty much the same. I got up, ate, watched the news, then worked around the house. When the door arrived, Fred and I installed it, and I replaced the door locks at the same time. Then I spent some time with the children. My parents were kind enough to drive them to school or daycare and pick them up, but I wanted to see them as often as possible. It was difficult to make them understand that their mother would not be with them as often as before. Emma was still afraid of adults, especially men, and I spent as much time with her as I could. The day arrived when Linda was to be served with the divorce papers, so Lisa called me to let me know when the bailiff would arrive. She advised me not to say anything until the documents were served. I gave her the room number and headed there. I met the bailiff at the door and saw Linda's mother standing there wiping away tears. "Please don't do this to her," she begged. "Not this way." I shook my head and entered the room with the bailiff. Linda was now without a ventilator and lay in bed, tears streaming down her cheeks. The bailiff approached her. "Linda Carlisle?" he asked. "It's me," she said quietly. He handed her a manila envelope. "You have been handed it," he said. "In addition to the divorce papers, you will also find a restraining order that has been filed against you and Mr. de Lavaliere. You are both ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from your husband, your children, your husband's home, and his parents' home. This also includes your husband's place of employment. Failure to comply with this order may result in your arrest and detention." She nodded before turning to me. "We can't get over this?" she asked. "It was just one night." "One night is too many, Linda," I said. "Emma is still suffering from what your lover did. This would never have happened if you hadn't done what you did. Sign the papers, Linda." "What if I decide to fight this?" she asked. "Then you will leave me no choice but to accuse you of treason," I said. "Treason?" She was surprised. "Yes, my lawyer says treason is a misdemeanor in this state," I said. "Nobody's ever been prosecuted for this, but there's always a first time. Just sign the papers and get it over with. If you look, you'll see that we're asking for half of what's already in our bank account. You'll also see that I'm asking for custody because you don't seem able to take care of yourself. Once the doctor says you're okay, I'll let you see the kids if they don't want to see you. We're asking for a minimum amount of child support from you, but nothing else. You get what's yours, I get the house and what's mine. I think I'm more than fair." "Can I at least look at them before I sign?" she asked. "Of course," I said. She read the documents, tears streaming down her cheeks. After a few minutes, she sighed and asked for a pen. The bailiff handed her a pen, and he watched as she signed the documents. He signed as a witness and took them from her. "I'll take this back to Miss Hawkins," he said. "Have a good day." After he left the room, Linda looked at me, hot tears streaming down her face. "Can't we get over this?" she begged. "I didn't mean to hurt you. It just happened." "Actually, you planned this," I said. "You wasted no time leaving with Lavaliruhen. He picked you up at the club. From the moment you saw him, he took possession of you. You didn't even bother to look at me a second time. There's no way I could get over what you did. Never." She started crying even harder. "I'm sorry, Jim," she said. "Can you ever forgive me?" I shook my head. "No," I said. "I have no forgiveness for you, at least not now. Maybe in a few years, but not now. God knows I can never forget what you did." "I'm so sorry," she cried. Normally, I would have gone to her to comfort her, but at that moment I felt nothing for her. It was as if she was one of thousands of other people I could pass by throughout the day without giving them a second glance. "Yes," I said quietly, "and me too." I turned and walked out of the room and out of her life. The next few months were difficult for all of us. The kids and I learned to cope without Linda, and we settled into a new routine. I learned to do everything Linda used to do, mostly through trial and error. It wasn't easy being Mr. Mom, but I managed with some help from my mom. Over time, The children stopped missing their mother so much. Emma had counseling, which was very helpful. Linda spends most of her time in a near catatonic state, not speaking to anyone. She eats, breathes, goes to the toilet, and sleeps, but that's about it. The rest of the time she sits in her room, rocking back and forth, apparently dreaming of happier times. I no longer communicate with the circle of friends we had. Dee was blown away when she was handed the documents. Of course, I never saw a penny from her, and I really didn't expect it. I just wanted her to know how much her actions or lack thereof helped ruin 4 lives. I saw Dave a few months after that fateful Friday, and he told me they were getting a divorce. Looks like she did the same thing Linda did while their so-called friends covered for her. Now I know what you went through, he told me. I can't tell you how sorry I am about all of this. I didn't get as much as I had hoped from my lawsuit against the Sharks, but I was still able to get a pretty decent amount from them, enough to put both kids through college and still have quite a bit left over. I also got an all-game pass for life. They fired Lavalier, but only after he went to prison to serve his sentence of 8 to 15 years for all the charges against him. We actually filed 2 lawsuits against Valera, by the way. More than 50 men came forward, saying their marriages had been destroyed by Lavalier. Lisa organized a class action lawsuit and brought it to court. A few months later, a judge said the lawsuit could proceed and legal proceedings began. Lisa told me that no matter the outcome, whether we win, lose, or draw, he will be broke. I filed a separate lawsuit against him for intentional infliction of emotional distress and damages as a result of his attack on me. We won this lawsuit, receiving $1.15 million from the jury. It wasn't as much as we originally asked for, but it was nice that we won. Even though Lisa didn't ask for anything for herself, I gave her a percentage for all her hard work. In July, I decided to sell the house. It held too many bad memories. I found a nice 3-bedroom apartment nearby that included security, so I bought it and we moved in. With the help of a counselor, I slowly started to put my life back together, but I still didn't have much of a social life due to all the hours spent with the kids. They were still my top priority. Audrey introduced me to her friend April, who was also going through a divorce, and we dated off and on for several months. She was nice, and we seemed to get along, but I was still afraid after what Linda did to me. In December, Linda's doctor asked if I could bring the children to her for Christmas. He said a visit might help Linda out of her constant gloom. Until now, it was said that she was still unable to see them. I discussed this with her mother and asked the children if they would like to see their mother for Christmas. To my surprise, they were both willing, so on Christmas Eve I took them to a facility located on the edge of a beautifully manicured area on the outskirts of town. At first, the children were afraid to approach her. I couldn't blame them. She looked exhausted and completely broken. The light in her eyes went out, and it seemed like she was looking at something a million miles away. However, she perked up when the children approached her and smiled at me with a pale smile. "Thank you for bringing them," she said quietly. I nodded and said nothing. The doctor and I watched as they shared updates about what was happening. An hour later, the doctor asked if I wanted to pick up the children. I looked a little more and shook my head. "No, let her spend time with them," I said. "It's Christmas after all." He smiled and nodded. We watched them talk and laugh. The doctor turned to me as Linda and the children spent time together. "I'm curious, Mr. Kenneth Carlisle," he said. "What happened? I know her side of the story and what was published, but I never heard your side. Would you mind telling me? Perhaps it will give me insight into her thoughts." I told him what happened and how I felt. Hope this helps fill in some of the gaps. When I finished, he looked at me thoughtfully. "Have you thought about reconciliation?" he asked. I shook my head. "It will never happen," I said. "She made a mistake, but can't she be forgiven?" he asked. "No, doctor," I answered. "Leaving cream on the table overnight was a mistake. I know, I've done it. What she did was cold and calculating. She plotted with her friends to make this happen. It's time for her to take responsibility for her actions and move on. Why don't you help her with this?" "All she wants is for her family to love her," he said. Well, let him want it, I said. You seem to still be angry, he remarked. How would you feel if you were me, Doc? I asked. Wouldn't you be angry if your wife turned her back and walked away without even bothering to say goodbye? I see your point, he admitted. How long do you think she'll stay here? I asked. It's hard to say, he replied. She is now a ward of the state. She needs to prove that she can function in society on her own without being a threat to herself or others. She is far from that now. She could be here for years. I nodded in understanding. We fell silent and watched her interact with the children. Finally, I could tell Linda was tired. She gets tired much faster these days, the doctor said. He approached her. Linda, it's time to take your meds. It's time for the kids to go home. She nodded and kissed the children one last time. She looked at me, sadness in her eyes. Thank you very much, Jim, she said. It would be great if I could see them more often. I feel better, I really do. Yes, Linda, I see, I said. You look very good, she said. Are you dating someone? Sometimes I meet, but nothing serious, I replied. I still love you, she said. I nodded. I miss the woman I married, I said. Get well, okay? And Merry Christmas. She smiled, and for a moment I saw a hint of the old Linda. Merry Christmas, she said, and thank you again. Please, I said. The children said goodbye and came up to me. Can we see her next week, Dad? Can we? Please? Asked Emma. Yes, can we, Dad? Timmy picked up. Well, I think we can arrange something, I said. Let's get you ready. It's time to go home, okay? And so began the tradition of 2-week meetings. Most often the children were taken there by their grandmother, but sometimes I take them too. I even talked to Linda a few times, but we never discussed Valera. There would be no reunion, and she knew it. But she seemed to enjoy the few minutes we spent together. In a few months, it will be 2 years since Linda left her family with Asshole. And while things still suck, they aren't as bad as they used to be. For example, in June 2020, the Lavalier team threw up its hands and settled a class action lawsuit. Lisa was right. By the time it was all said and done, Asshole was penniless. We didn't get much, but it was nice to know he was done with for good. He lost everything: money, reputation as a public hero, and fame. Even Linda smiled at this. Maybe next February won't be terrible, or at least as bad as the last two. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even click to the next one.